Hello, this is Shauna with Tech Mecca, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a few pointers on a more successful way to bid on Quibids. Now, right now we're looking at an auction for the Apple iPod Touch 8 GB version, and we're already currently in the bidding stage of the auction. It's at $3.10 now. And if you hover over the clock, one of the things you want to pay attention to is if you hover over the clock, it states that the clock will reset to 10 seconds at $7.03. And what that means is that the clock will reset 10 seconds every time someone places a bid. So that's what that's saying right there. You want to pay attention to that. Now, the other thing you want to go ahead and pay attention to is, of course, the other bidders that are currently in this auction, which is sitting at 16 bidders. Now, most people will go ahead and tell you don't bother with bidding until it gets down to 10 people in the auction, and I beg to differ, because I've been in auctions where there were this many, 16, 17 people, up to 20, and the auction has ended without anyone else other than one person placing a bid prior to the clock running out. So if you're motivated, if you really want to go ahead and win an item, don't let this go ahead and deter you from putting in the bid at 1 second. Now, why am I talking about this 1 second rule? Well, at 1 second, it's doing two things when you place a bid. One, it's keeping the auction from ending. If you want this item, of course, you don't want it to end, so you want to manually place a bid at that point to go ahead and make sure that the auction still continues to go on. The other reason you want to place a bid at 1 second is that you don't want to place it at 2 seconds or 4 seconds or 5 seconds, because of the fact that there are people that, just like us, are watching these people just spin their bids, and at 1 second they're going to place their bids also. And all things other than the amount of bids being equal that you have, you want them to spend their bids just like you're spending your bids, so that in the end, if you have more bids than everyone else at that point, you will walk away with the Apple iPod Touch. Now, you'll see over here there's single bidders, which is when someone presses this button manually, and there are bid-o-matic bidders who are still probably looking at this auction, but they want the computer to go ahead and bid for them. And you can place right here in this area anywhere from 3 bids. You have to have at least 3 bids, all the way up to 25 bids are the most that you can place in here for the computer to bid for you. Now, oftentimes the bid-o-matic is a strategy for people who are going against someone who's being very aggressive, and those very aggressive people will constantly come up over the bid-o-matics in the effort to be the current winner. My suggestion is to go ahead and let these people do what they want to do and wait till it gets to 1 second right here. They can expend as many bids as they want while you're just watching it. Now, I've been watching this auction, and so far I would have only had to place 3 bids. Now, currently it's at $3.50, which means 350 people, or not people, but 350 times a bid has been placed. So most of the time, motivated bidders put in approximately, I would say, 10% of the amount of bids that have been placed. So at the very least, the real motivated bidder has put in at least 35 bids, and we would have had to bid right there because it got down to 1 second. So a motivated bidder, and my definition of a motivated bidder is someone who has placed multiple bids and on a fairly frequent manner, trying to be the current winner. And likely they are either someone who is thinking they only have a certain amount of bids and they want to be very aggressive to get other people out of the auction so they can win it at a fairly early stage, because longevity in these auctions, you typically need anywhere from at least, I would say, have at least, for this particular item, at least 100 bid pack to start with. And we would have bid right there. Because it's probably going to be at least a little bit of a while before this auction ends. Now, say for instance this auction ended right now, it would go ahead and show you how many bids the winning bidder, once we refreshed it over here, how many, or oftentimes it'll go ahead and refresh itself, it'll show you, but how many bids the person placed to win the auction. A lot of people will tell you, oh, I just won an iPod Touch for $3.75, but they're not telling you how many bids they placed in order to get it at that price. And oftentimes they've bid 100 times, 150 times, 200 times. And the equivalent of that, if it's 100 bids, that would be $60. If it's 200 bids, that would be $120. So you have to take into account, and we would bid right there, we have to take into account the amount of bids right here as well. So far, since I've been recording, it's only 2 bids we've placed so far. These people have been holding down the fort, as you know, I would say, and there was no need for us to bid any more than that. But as I said, when this constantly starts to go down to 1 every 10 bids or so, then you might want to really start paying attention to the auction. And we would have had to bid there. So currently we have 1 Bidomatic person, and they just happen to have not stopping. Most of the people that have names like that don't think that they have 2,000 bids in their pocket or anything like that. Most of them name themselves that to intimidate other players, or other bidders, I should say. But don't let that intimidate you. If you want the item, don't worry about what their names are or anything like that. Just go ahead and worry about how many bids you have, and play conservatively until it's time to be a little bit more aggressive. We're not at that point yet. So you would have bid there. As you can see, there's quite a few people in here, but as I said, if I really wanted this item, I would still place that bid at 1 second, because I want the auction to continue. And it got down to 1 again. And technically this is where it was when it got down to 1 second. That person was the bidder. So we have actually 4 people that placed the bid at that point. So this person actually looked like they're the motivated bidder. For now, anyway. And the motivated bidder will go ahead and constantly want to be the current winner. As you can see, they came back there. So that's the person you want to keep an eye on. That's the person you want to make sure, if it's getting down to 1, that you place a bid. These other people, you might want to go ahead and just, you know, not necessarily not place a bid at 1 second, but typically if the motivated bidder, there they are again, will be coming back likely. So technically don't bid again until 1 second. And that person went ahead and jumped the gun. Now see, what it is that when they jump the gun like that, everyone else involved in the auction is just letting it go through the cycle again of the reset, because why place a bid if someone else already did it? So we would place a bid right there, and we were here. That was the bidder. So 3 people look like they're, see, there's 19 people in the last 5 minutes have bid, and only 3 people bid after this guy. So it's constantly getting down to 1 pretty much. And we just had a new player come in, see, it went to 20. So they're thinking just like me, it was getting close to the end of the auction. But now that they've entered, it probably is a situation to where it's going to take a little bit longer, because according to how many bids they have, and don't necessarily go by that they won 20 bids. They could have a lot more bids, or they can have a lot less. At this point, all we want to do again is place our bid at 1 second. So other suggestions, I mean, in a situation to where the value price is below $100, those are usually pretty easy to win, other than vouchers. People love to win vouchers, and vouchers are auctions that they're auctioning off more bids, and those usually go a little bit further than what a typical $100 valued item would go. When you're getting up into computers, iPads, tablets, TVs, where the items are $500 all the way up to $2,500, you have to be a serious bidder in those. And what I mean by that, you have to have quite a few bids. I would say don't have anything less than 500 bids when you're getting into auctions that have a value of $500 or more, because those are so tightly contested auctions that you want to have some longevity. And oftentimes it'll be the same situation where you'll see people constantly bidding, like these people over here, and you won't have to spend those 500 bids immediately and constantly. You'll just go ahead and wait, just like in this one. Wait till it gets down to 1 second, so at least the auction doesn't end and you have other people expending their bids as well. And another suggestion is just like, for instance, in this situation, even though it got down to 1 second earlier, I probably would not have placed any bids at all so far, because if it ends without me placing a bid, hey, I just went ahead and saw the auction. At least I studied a little bit, saw how people were bidding and everything, and I haven't lost a bid. And the other advantage to that is that because you haven't expended any bids at all, at this point where a lot of people have spent, at this point, the motivated bidders probably have put in at least 46 bids, which is about the equivalent of $30, which isn't much at this point. But at least if you got into the auction, you would at least save that amount of money. You'd save about at least $30 off of the price. Well, technically a little more than 10% of the value price, because what Quibids will do is that once a person gets to the value of this by the amount of bids that they've placed, so they've placed approximately, they've placed approximately $220 something in bids, Quibids will tell them, hey, you're about to spend more than the item is worth. Just go down here to pay now, and just pay the difference of about $6, $7, and it's yours. We'll send it to you. And they will not allow the person to bid anymore. So you would save that amount of money. So it's coming on 15 seconds. I have to stop the tape now. Rate, comment, and subscribe. And until then, you all take care.